The Millers were a family defined by glowing rectangles. For 10-year-old Timmy, reality was what happened inside the bezel of his tablet. His father, Arthur, lived in a perpetual state of checking emails. And his mother, Sarah, measured her self-worth by the number of likes on her daily posts. They were a family of 3, yet they usually sat in the same room without speaking a single word. Their faces were illuminated by the ghostly blue light of their devices. The decision to rent a remote cottage in the countryside was not a choice. It was a prescription. Their family therapist had called it a digital detox. But to Timmy, it sounded more like a prison sentence. The drive was long and silent, broken only by the tapping of fingers on glass. But as the car wound its way down a gravel path surrounded by towering oaks, disaster struck. The GPS signal vanished. Then, the 4G icon on Timmy's tablet flickered and died. Panic set in the moment the car engine stopped. Arthur held his phone to the sky, walking in desperate circles. Like a man performing a rain dance, searching for a single bar of signal. Sarah was frantically tapping the refresh button on her feed, her face twisting in confusion as the spinning wheel of death mocked her. Timmy just sat on the porch of the old wooden cabin, staring at a black screen. He felt a phantom vibration in his pocket, a ghost of a notification that wasn't there. The silence of the woods was deafening. It was too quiet, too spacious, and terrifyingly real. An hour passed. The withdrawal symptoms were itching under their skin. With nothing to refresh and no one to text, Timmy finally looked up. A dragonfly, shimmering with iridescent blue and green, hovered right in front of his nose. It moved with a frame rate that no graphics card could ever achieve. Curiosity piqued, Timmy stood up. He followed the creature toward the edge of the wild garden. He looked at the grass beneath his sneakers. He bent down and touched it. It was cold, damp, and incredibly detailed. He realized that the resolution of this world was infinite. There were no pixels, no jagged edges. He ran his hand along the rough bark of an ancient pine tree. The texture was gritty and sharp. This is haptic feedback, he thought, but far more advanced than my game controller. He took a deep breath. The air didn't smell like recycled air conditioning. It smelled of wet earth, pine needles, and something sweet he couldn't name. Timmy started to run. He wasn't running from a virtual monster, and he wasn't running toward a checkpoint. He was just running. The physics engine of the real world was intense. He could feel the gravity, the resistance of the wind, the uneven terrain challenging his balance. Suddenly, he slipped. Timmy tumbled down a small grassy slope and landed with a wet splash in a muddy puddle. He sat there for a second, stunned. Mud was smeared across his cheek and soaked into his jeans. In his digital world, this would be a game over or a fail state. But here, the mud felt cool. It felt hilarious. A bubble of laughter rose from his chest. It started as a giggle and erupted into a loud, uncontrollable roar of joy. Inside the cabin, Arthur and Sarah froze. They hadn't heard that sound in years. It wasn't the short, hollow chuckle Timmy gave when watching a video clip. This was a deep, belly-shaking sound of pure delight. They rushed outside, fearing he was hurt. They found their son sitting in the mud, wiping dirt from his eyes, pointing at a frog that was staring back at him. Arthur looked at his expensive suit, then at his son. Sarah looked at her pristine white shoes. They looked at each other. The stress lines on Arthur's forehead, usually etched deep by market crashes and deadlines, began to soften. Sarah took the first step. She walked over, knelt down, and poked the mud with her finger. She smiled. It was a genuine smile, not one practiced for a selfie. Arthur joined them, loosening his tie and sitting right on the damp grass. For the rest of the afternoon, the Millers didn't consume content. They created memories. They didn't watch 4K videos of nature. They became part of it. They skipped stones on the creek, realizing that the splash of water was more satisfying than any visual effect. As evening fell, the sky turned a deep, velvety purple. Without the light pollution of the city, the stars came out. They weren't just white dots. They were diamond dust scattered across a cosmic canvas. The family lay on a blanket, huddled together for warmth. There were no notifications dinging, no blue light damaging their eyes. The only sound was the crackling of a small fire and the rhythmic chirping of crickets. Timmy looked at his parents. They looked younger in the firelight. "I think my battery is dead," Arthur whispered, gesturing to the phone left abandoned on the porch. "Mine too," Sarah replied softly. Timmy smiled, closing his eyes as he listened to the wind singing through the trees. He knew what they meant. Their devices were dead, empty, and lifeless. But as he felt his father's arm around him and heard his mother humming a tune, Timmy knew the truth. For the first time in a long time, the three of them were fully charged.